right, so time dilation. Anthony, you can tell me how I got this wrong later, but the working model that I have in my head right now is that there's two observers in a gravitational field, and they're moving at different speeds. And so their sense of time, their experience of time is different. So movement slows and speeds time, which is like exactly the kind of metaphor and topic and issue that we love in this program. It's how we get our multidimensional metaphors. We can talk about that later, and that's thanks to Anthony as well. And I bring up time dilation because, you know, in writing 1,000 different versions of what I was going to say tonight, I really got stuck remembering standing in the main hall, ESA, on Portfolio Day 1, and it was probably like 12, well, it was probably like 1 o'clock, 1:20 to be honest, because we had let the reps, the school reps, out of the mini theater. We used the mini theater in the first year or two. And, you know, we kept them in there, we had sandwiches, and I gave a speech, and really what we're doing is waiting for the lunch bell to go so that everyone's out of the halls. Because, of course, at our school, there's still, all the classes are running. This is a year or two before Glenn joined us, so it was like Kevin and Nick and I standing, we're actually outside the green room, which is right next to the mini theater, and we were sort of like checking our phones, and the reps were still in their first conversations of the day. You know, and I overplan, or I overworry, and so the whole event was falling apart in front of me because they were supposed to spend like 5 or 10 minutes per first conversation per student. And 45 or 50 minutes later, the SAIC rep, who was in the green room, finished a conversation with his first student of the day and walked out. And the three of us rushed in to talk to Max, who was in there, because we were like, what is going on? Like, I was panicking. And so I learned a lot of things that day. I guess, like tonight, like we've seen, when you get really incredible people together, they just want to talk. And we've done a lot of things talking, mostly sitting on the floor. Wasn't supposed to start already. And, you know, so Max was like, you know, we're like, how'd it go? And he's like, I think it went okay. And we're like, what does that mean? And he's like, I just got a $128,000 US offer. And, that whole thing was a bit of a mystery because it was the first time, like I thought we were going to do a good job. I knew we were going to do a good job. But really I was hoping for $300,000 or $400,000 in offers that day, Canadian. And I was hoping 12 schools would come. We had 24 schools, and we ended up with $1.4 million in offers that first day. So it's just an incredible thing to bring these minds together and to see what would happen. I'm so proud of everyone who spoke tonight and everyone who's ever spoken at our talks and who's ever taken a risk and tried something. Everyone who's made things in our program and shown. Everyone who's been brave enough to say, Mr. Varey, can we talk? Those are the most special moments, of course. And I'm proud of everyone who participated in Portfolio Day, and everyone who came before Portfolio that helped us understand the foundation that led to the success and all the press and that kind of thing, and everyone who's just did Portfolio Day 13, everyone who will be doing Portfolio Day 14 next year. I'm so proud of you. And just wanted to say I love you all and thank you. Thank you so much.
Love you, Matt.
Thank you for coming tonight. Thank you for supporting ESA for 20 years. Thanks for supporting the kids, and thanks for supporting me. So again, tonight we came here to talk. And there is some awareness that when we're with people who will understand us, we will be understood. That's so powerful. And talking has led to us building this family. And in this family, we often feel capable of being understood. And oh my God, I've not clicked anything. Matthew Barry way, I've overdone it. It might be 150 slides. Quick overview of a few portfolio things. I'll play for a bit. Early this year, exciting early days. Yeah, so in this family, we often feel capable of being understood, and then we know that we're not alone. And as a grade 12 said to me towards the end of one portfolio day, and this student was remarkable in many ways, but primarily in my memory because she was so disabled by her anxiety and fear of public speaking and showing her work. And I remember checking in on her for the day, but then again at around 7:30 or so that night. And there was no one around, it was just us, and I went up to her and I said, "How's it going?" And she looked at me in the eyes and she said, "I'll never have to be afraid again." We encourage you to participate in thousands of opportunities, including those museum shows in the US and the UK and across Canada, in order to have the focus of some part of the world on you, to celebrate you, to showcase how special and wonderful and incredible you are, to help you see what you're capable of and how well received you would be, how proud of yourselves, I hope, you could be, to push back a bit of all the wear and tear that had occurred through being alive. Portfolio Day created a framework for us to do the really important things. It took us a few years, portfolio days 1, 2, 3, 4 probably. And then the momentum grew and the experience built, and we crossed this line. Well, we crossed a lot of lines, as everybody knows. But together, we did something that I truly believe is impossible. And I get that by definition, the fact that we did it proves it wasn't, but I still think it kind of was, and still is. Something that no one had ever thought to do before us, because before us, no one could do it. I know the statistics matter mostly for the press, but here's some of the statistics. You know, we've done 13 portfolio days. And the last 3 that we did in person before COVID, we had 85 or 90 16 and 17-year-olds with 20 to 70 works each, so more than 2,000 artworks, in highly curated solo exhibitions on the main floor of a publicly funded, fallen apart high school with all the classes running. I don't know how that was possible. And that has resulted in probably $135 million in scholarship offers. And our grads are alone in schools all over the world. There were 40 birds in there. There were 40 birds in there, and that's when Peggy was the principal. You can imagine. Okay, good story. So this is one student's work. She had these models in her clothing that she designed and made, but she had an equal number of her friends as models taking a break, and they're on rotation. And I remember once the reps got going, I didn't make it to this part of the school for an hour and a half or 2 hours. And I walked in just as they were switching shifts, and Sophia, whose room it was, saw the door open, saw me walk in, and just did this. And suddenly there was a whole lunge of models posing and music was pumping, and she had the whole thing dialed, and she did this from noon till 11 p.m. And I think, we could do all of this because we worked through our defenses. We spoke honestly about who we are and what we've done without shame. We tried to be the selves we were when we were little, before we were afraid, before we got hurt. And we shared those younger selves, and we asked for help. And we did the work to see many of the patterns that make us and connect us. We connected those patterns to other patterns still. Olivia Kerr, I love you, but you were not finishing this until like 11:30 in the morning, portfolio day. It looks easy. It looks like you could just hang a bunch of photos. It was not. We did this. So all those connections, all those nets showed up in Rivka Mitchell's paintings. Rivka's finishing her PhD in applied mathematics at Oxford University right now. And we made a decision a couple months before Portfolio Day that she was going to produce a single body of work. And we knew enough to predict the sort of reactions that she'd get from the reps, which would range from, this is terrible, you don't know what you're doing, to something incredible. And sure enough, on the day, that's what happened. My favorite rep response to Rivka's solo exhibition is what this was. This is the best MFA graduating show I've ever seen. And I didn't know that a 16-year-old could produce a solo show for their portfolio before this moment. And there's so many moments like this that we just learned and folded what we learned back into the class the next day. People would run up to me and say, I figured something out last night, and I would listen, and the next day I'd tell everybody, and everyone would know it. And that just kept going and going. That's the rep intake table on Portfolio Day. That's us. That's how we play. What lunch looks like at ESA. And just some of the crowds, some of the shots of Portfolio Day. We couldn't move. That story Glenn told about us knowing we were in trouble, I remember standing there with him and just going, what's happening, what's happening? Like I thought we were fire marshal trouble. We'll get there. All these people, all this work. One of my favorite stories was, I think, someone will know, PD8, PD9, maybe even PD7. So at the end of the night, we would all, everyone who was involved in the portfolio would go to the library. The reps were gone. The rest of the rep food was in there. We fed them several times throughout the day. There was tons of food. And kids would get to eat what was left over and drink and just sort of celebrate together. And this is when we realized that you couldn't have portfolio and clean up in the same day. We learned that lesson. I remember the year before, I was running down the main hall trying to get something done, and it was like 11:30, and the caretakers were so mad at us, and everyone was still in the building because we hadn't finished cleaning up. But then I saw Glenn and someone else sprint by me going the other way, and I had just enough clarity to go, do I turn around? I don't think so. Eventually, when I got back to the art hall, and I looked in the art hall, I thought, there's something wrong here, because I couldn't see as far in as room 102, because students had started shoveling that gravel pit and clay pit that I showed you earlier, and the dust from it filled the whole first floor. It wiped out all of the computers on the first floor. They were getting close to midnight, and I made a permit to midnight, and I remember going by one caretaker, and he was just so amazed. So that was the last of trying to clean it all up the night before, or the same night. Anyway, so the next year, we're on the library, and it's like 11:35, 11:40. And everyone's like, woo! And then we open the library doors, we're all on our way out. But there's 4 people waiting for us. And at that point, the biggest schools, like School of the Art Institute of Chicago, which was considered the top undergraduate art program in the world, they were sending multiple reps, so they've flown 4 reps up that day. We had as many as 150 reps join us for the day of portfolio days. And they had waited while we were in the library for like 45 minutes so that they could thank all of the students and let them know that their sense of the world had changed that day, and they didn't know what they had seen during the day was possible. So things like that are incredible. And that's you guys. Whether you have that day or not, you have that potential. I want to put this here because I remember where I was the first time I heard someone use the word love to describe our community. And it was Sadie who said it. Very thankful. That was before COVID. So many shows. So much being featured in museums, on TV, on the news, in China. When Chris Hampton pitched writing an article about us for Canadian Art Magazine, it was a big deal for me. I'd sort of grown up in Canadian art. I grew up in a town, Dundas, outside of Hamilton. Canadian art was sort of my one connection to the contemporary art world in Canada. So for them to want to cover us, first of all, we're of course the only high school they've ever written about, which was an incredible honor. And Chris and the editor at the time had meetings about us before Chris first joined us at the art sale. And they were sure they knew exactly what was going on and how they could explain why and how we were doing what we were doing. They knew for sure that 1, we had state-of-the-art facilities. They said it in a brand new building. 2, that we had access to likely millions of dollars. And 3, I was feeding you all MFA level theory. And anyone who knows me knows I'm a bit anti-MFA level theory. Yeah. So Chris walked in, and I saw him walk in, and we were, again, in that same sort of stretch of the main hall, and I just saw his face, and he's like, okay, I think we need to sit down and talk. It's a very fair article. It's a fantastic article. I'm super proud of that, though. That was a good moment. A writer at the Toronto Star asked me several times about a month ago when I was talking to her how it's possible that you all, these people, were able to accomplish this. The question keeps being asked. She kept asking, it's a bit cringe, but she kept asking, what's the secret sauce? And those of us here tonight know what the secret sauce is. It is love. It's working through great difficulty towards understanding and clarity. It's finding acceptance. It's being listened to. It's being taken seriously. For being taken seriously is a form of love. It's learning to be honest, to be vulnerable, to be kind. Thank you so much for letting me be part of your lives. And such an incredible year to be leaving. We've had so many shows. I think at Art Toronto we had 7 grads showing. Luca's here tonight with Anthony. Luca will be showing with Olga Corporate Gallery, and her first solo show is coming up really quickly. Sorry, I know it's stressful to say probably, but it's going to be amazing, and I hope everybody can join us that night. I had the honor of helping to move some of Luca's lead cubes one day. So I'll see you all at that opening. Daniel, one of our amazing grade 11s, got to show his work in Times Square this year on a billboard as part of Art Week, Freeze Art Week. It was an amazing opportunity, and he's going to be showing with this Italian gallery in a few other countries in the coming months. Milo, grade 11 again, won this year's Jeffrey Junior Fellowship. It's a 10,000 US fellowship to create a body of work and have an exhibition, and that will be in October at Northern Contemporary Gallery. So again, hope everybody can come. And this is kind of a remarkable photo. Maddie, I haven't kept in touch with as much, but she was part of that first photo that I showed you tonight. Michelle, sitting next from me, currently has her first London, UK solo exhibition up. She shows primarily, she shows in Vancouver and Toronto, but she now is a London dealer. Andrea is an amazing photographer and has shown several times this year, including the Artist Project. Jean-Luc on the far side, as I mentioned, just finished his amazing solo exhibition at Mark Christopher Gallery, and is a fantastic woodworker, painter, and one of the smartest people I know. And there's the guy in the baseball hat who has been up to a couple of things this year too. So from here, and for those who have done it, the painting in the background is 17 foot long by 6.5 foot tall painting that Jean-Luc did, a self-portrait. And this was one of his 6 prompts for the Cooper Union Home Test that year. At this, yeah, we don't mess around. This year, at this stage, Cooper Union would, now you got 3.5-ish weeks, almost 4. Back then we had less, no? Anyway, we had less, and they were given to us just before the March break. So I would get permits so that we could spend all March break at the school in order to get the Cooper Union Home Test done. And that was one of his pieces. Jean-Luc paint's really small now, ironically. Can't imagine what that painting would be worth now. It still exists. Yeah, that was quite a night for me. And the fact too that Daniel was reading from his sketchbook, and Daniel's been working those sketchbooks since grade 10 at least. The Daniel story I keep telling, one of the best Daniel stories is at some point in grade 10 he realized he didn't want to go to class anymore. So he convinced our librarian, and that was probably the most impressive thing I've ever seen, because our librarian at the time hated me and was formidable. But Daniel charmed her and set up an office in the back of the library, and would just show up at school in the morning, go to the back of the library and work on his films. And we got him a scholarship at Savannah College of Art and Design, and he lasted there, I think, 3 or 4 months. Until the end of their film week, when he decided he was just going to make film. He made enough contacts at film week and he left. Worked out. And if you're, for the haters, sometimes when people have good things happen to them, they are sweethearts. Daniel's one of the most generous and kind people I've ever met. He's very smart. I mean, he always tells me when I'm wrong, which is awesome too, but he's very giving, and he spent an entire afternoon with us letting every single student in the school hold his Oscar. Lots of day to remember. What year? Nice to go out on a record or two. So we've had a few people try really hard to see what they could accomplish, given the sort of formula in the system that we've come up with. It's really started with Rachel, the first person to break 2 million, and then Luca. and then Natalie Turcott, and now Jane, and now we're up at the 4.1-ish range, and 62 schools applied to. So again, just a sense of what you can do if you really try, and I think sums up our program beautifully. Thank you, Jane. Thank you, everybody. See if I can get through that. So thank you, Glenn. Thank you, Nick. As Nick always reminds me, any good program is just a reflection of its leaders, and these two have been my leaders. Glenn, you've given more of yourself to this program than anyone ever should. Glenn and I built this together, and a big part of sort of violence I feel when you think about leaving is pulling that apart. Thank you, Glenn, for saying yes all those times when a reasonable person should have said no. Thank you. And I want to thank both my parents, who are both here tonight, for teaching me how to teach, for demonstrating that dreaming and education can be the same thing. That's my mom in the 70s band in. I think it was 1978. My dad's not in the pictures. He was working so that he could pay for us to run this school. They took over and ran the Dundon Educational Work Center, which we renamed Dream Machine. My dad paid for it. So there's similarities all over the place. When I was in grade 1, it was there that I learned that students are people, that everyone needs their own curriculum, that everyone gets where they're going in their own way, and that people's feelings, thoughts, and ideas, even if not in the curriculum, are the most important things. I think one of the things I'm most proud of, and I'm fiercely proud of it, is that every one of you, every one of us, has developed our own unique works of art and our own identities, our own selves. Even though we really only had 26 months from the start of grade 10 to portfolio day, everyone had their own work, not school assignments, consistent individual work that connected to who they truly were, connected to all of us. The images are the proof. And as you can read in detail, I learned all this when I was 10, from my mom. I'll read what it says. By working on an individual basis, Mrs. Varey said she can tell at what level the children are working. She can also pick out problems they might be having. As far as discipline goes, the school has few rules, and most of these were set by the children themselves. Nothing changed. There's one song that encapsulates our program best of all. Sums up what all of us have spoken about tonight. It's our secret sauce, but in lyrics. And it's a song that we've often sung and played and listened to in room 102 for the past 15 or 18 years. And I want to end tonight by saying that you are all my rainbow connection. Oh. Everyone here tonight. And I want to say that life with all of you has been like an incredible movie. And I hope that we will continue to help each other write our own endings, because we can't do it alone. And I trust that we will all keep believing and keep creating and keep pretending. We did do just what we set out to do. And that is incredible, remarkable, once in a lifetime. Thank you for the love, the dreams that came true. Thank you. We were supposed to play. We had some computer problems earlier. Anyway, you get the point. Thanks, everybody.